Hey, welcome back to the Soul Pod. This is Stacy. So, you already saw the title, but there are certain benefits in owning your shit. And today we're going to talk about that. This is a this is a spiritual tool you can use for your own personal and spiritual growth. And it takes a little bit of effort and self-awareness and a little bit of vigilance to stay on top of this stuff and to actually create the habit. But we're going to go through this. It's going to be a little bit longer video than usual, but it's a really useful tool and it's going to be really beneficial. Not long ago, I went up to a town here for an event that was going on. I was meeting up with a friend, and I was running a little bit late. I got a little bit of a late start, and I shot her a text, and I said, I'll be there by a certain time. And I was running late, and I was looking around for a parking spot. And I'm like going nuts, right? Because I can't find a parking spot, and I'm already late. Now I'm even more late, and I don't like to be late. When I make a commitment to be somewhere on time, I want to be there on time. And so now everybody who gets in front of me, everybody who's in this parking lot is my enemy. Man, they like this lady in front of me is driving so slow, and I hear my internal voice bitching about how, gosh, can you not drive faster, right? And then there's someone who's sitting in his car, but he's not leaving. He's just sitting in his car. There's no parking spots open in this little bitty parking lot. There's one spot, and he's just sitting there. And I'm just like, man, will you go, right? That's the voice in my head. The voice in my head is not my best friend. And it's also a really wonderful tool to recognize when we have a voice in our head going on and go, oh, that's my own bullshit. So here I was running late, blaming everybody else for the issue. But whose problem was it? Whose fault was it? Whether it was my fault or not, maybe I hit traffic on the way in, maybe something outside of my control, some construction on the road, whatever it is, it's still my problem. And me blaming other people for my problem, the problem that's my job to solve, not theirs, total strangers, or even people who aren't total strangers. Maybe you're blaming your best friend or your spouse because like I'm angry and it's your fault that I'm angry. As soon as you start blaming, no matter what it is, you give away power. Now, maybe something isn't your fault. Maybe something happened that somebody did that is their fault. But anytime you can find even the smallest percentage of responsibility for it on your part, you own a little bit of the power. Now, if there isn't any, that's fine too. It is what it is. But in the case of me going to a parking lot and going, oh, man, that's nobody's problem but my problem. As soon as I start blaming someone else, well, great. Now, they get the blame for it, but I lose all power in that situation. The power I have in that situation is to go, oh, yeah, this is me. I blew it. I didn't leave early enough. And I'm not going to let myself get pissy about it because people that have nothing to do with my situation happen to be impeding my forward progress. They don't know anything about my situation or my grumpy mood or the story in my head. I want to share with you a story that underlines this so well that I really love. There's a guy named Hal Elrod. He's an American author. He wrote the book The Miracle Morning, which is a massive bestseller. And Hal said, the moment you take responsibility for everything in your life is the moment you can change anything in your life. The moment you take responsibility for everything in your life is the moment that you can change anything in your life. Great quote, but even more so is, in terms of greatness, the story of Hal Elrod. This is a guy when he was 20 years old. He got in a massive car wreck with a drunk driver. A really horrible, horrible car wreck at 20, right? Messed him up really bad. He ended up in a coma. He ended up with 11 broken bones. He was just wrecked. He was torn up. Uh, he came out of it, with permanent brain damage on some levels, and he had a long, long road to recovery. And he ended up running ultra marathons. A marathon's a marathon. I think an ultra marathon is 3 marathons in a row. That's pretty ultra. Ultra marathons. And then, he went on later when he was, I think, 37. He had a form of leukemia where 2 out of 3 people that get it die, and fought through it, came out the other end. And this all comes from this positive mindset where Hal could have gone, you know what? This sucks, man. The world, why'd this happen to me? Like, I'm 20 years old, some drunk driver runs into me and screws me up for life. Like my body's not going to ever work the same again. Or, oh man, I got leukemia. Geez, how many people would just punch out, give up, and go, forget it, man. I'm just going to sit home and I'm going to just be disabled. I'm just going to phone it in. I quit. Like life's unfair. And would we blame them if they did? I don't think we would, because these are big things to get over. Either one of those is a big thing to get over, but that's not what Hal got from it. What Hal got from it was, well, this is my work. He didn't blame the world for his plight and say, well, this sucks. Or perhaps he did, and then he caught himself and went, but I lose all my power in that moment. If I blame them, I lose all my power. It's that moment you change everything in your life, is the moment you take responsibility for everything in your life. Everything, he said, everything. Isn't that wild? I don't even know if I'm that good, but I can take responsibility for the things I recognize as things that I have a little bit of power in. And that's the way to look at them. Instead of culpability, perhaps, you say, where's my power in this? You can also say, where is my fault in this? Either of those is good. Depends on how you frame it, how you want to frame it, and how you use that as a tool for growth. So what Hal did is he ends up writing this best-selling book that was sold well over 3 million copies. It was translated into 42 different languages. And he turned these bad experiences into really the fuel that lit the fire for a tremendous success, continuing to get up every morning and have one good day at a time. His book, The Miracle Morning, is about every morning's a miracle. And what do you do with it? But how do we go about elevating our consciousness to that level, to get in that beautiful headspace where we're like, I can do this? How do we do that? Author and researcher Brene Brown, who I love, said, owning our story and loving ourselves through that process is the bravest thing we'll ever do. Isn't that wonderful? Owning our own story and loving ourselves through that process. This is our story. This once in a lifetime journey inside this body we call human. Our soul is just an internal backpack, right? It's just a little passenger inside going, do, 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 do. This is great. And just going along for the ride. But our human journey is our human journey, and we have to own our story. And the trick with it is to be okay with it. We're not just owning our story and owning our culpability in these things, or owning the part that we can actually have some power in. We're also loving ourselves with empathy along the way. Owning our story and loving ourselves through the process is what she said, through the process. And the process is not getting it right sometimes. The process sometimes is maybe you're in a parking lot thinking angry thoughts about total strangers because, damn it, I got somewhere to be. Brown, in her quote, suggests that empathy is one of the key tools here, But how do we do that? What is self-empathy, and how does that work? There's certain steps in self-empathy, and we're going to go through that right now. We'll label this out too to make it a little visual. The first one is breaking the blame cycle. As soon as what we've been talking about here, recognizing that we're blaming and just quitting that shit. Just no more of that. The thing that does is it immediately empowers you. Like I said, it gives you the power to now be able to change something. As soon as I blame someone else for my issue, you got a coworker or somebody like that who's pissing you off, and you're like, I could have gotten that job done sooner if it weren't for so and so. Well, as soon as you make them the person responsibility for your failure, now you have no power at all to change it. But in the moment where you go, yeah, you know what? That person did totally get in my way and they were a pain in the ass, but I also got these things wrong. If I fixed those things, that would have improved it slightly. Now you've taken some of the power back. Even if it's only 5%, 10%, 15%, less than half, you still, the more it's your fault, the more power you have. So when you empower yourself by recognizing where you could have done better. And as you do that, you improve as you go. Step one, breaking the blame cycle. Forget the blame, switch it into an empowerment. That's what happens. Point number 2, owning your flaws builds self-respect. You see, when we blame other people for our failings, for our losses, for our lateness, well, then we've disempowered ourselves. But When we own it, when we own it and we take the responsibility for changing it and becoming stronger, our flaws become self-respect, because there's this thing that happens when you do that where you may not even realize it, but there's this building inside of you that happens where you respect yourself more and more and more each time you get that right. Because how do you feel about people who you see at work, or you in your friend group or in your family, who are always blame, 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 but don't own any of their own shit? Don't own any of it. Now, how do you feel about those people who you know who own their shit, who go, yeah, you know what? I blew it. At the risk of being judged, at the risk of looking bad, it looks like bravery, doesn't it? It looks like courage. And the reason it looks like courage to you is because we know that it's a scary thing to admit that you're wrong. So what happens is you build self-respect when you do this. Own your shit, build self-respect, get stronger, get better, get empowered. The next thing is self-empathy transforms failures into lessons. When you do this work regularly, you are taking something where you got it wrong and making yourself stronger with it. Now, if you just left it there, you blew it. You blew it. You know, you blew it. Maybe you know, maybe you don't know, maybe you're not even willing to admit it. But no matter where it is, if you blew it on some subconscious level, you know you did, and you left it over there. Let's say you didn't know and you left it over there, but you didn't own that shit. You get nothing in return for it. You don't grow from it. There's no benefit from it. All you do maybe is get to feel a little bit better about not having to take an ass kicking over admitting you're wrong, right? The moment you own your shit and you go, okay, that was mine, that was my blow it right there, I did that, you have now taken that thing that could have no positive effect on you and only a negative effect on you, and now converted that into something that has a positive effect on your life, because it's transforming that thing that happened into a positive lesson. Instead of it having nothing, no benefit, now it has a benefit. And the benefit is that you are getting stronger, because each time you do that, you're creating a pattern of recognizing and fixing, recognizing and fixing, recognizing and fixing, and becoming stronger and stronger and stronger until it becomes reflexive. The fourth piece of this is that this is part of your soul's journey. This is a spiritual journey that you are on. And your soul's journey's job, the job of your journey in this human body for your soul, is to become stronger, to become better, to become greater, to learn from this journey in this body on this globe that we call Earth, this beautiful one of a kind journey that is your life. You have all these pieces to it, and nothing but good that comes from it. When you don't own your shit, you don't gain anything. When you own your shit, the world is your oyster, man. You start building and growing and breaking the cycle and empowering and owning your flaws. You're building self-respect. You're doing all these beautiful things that are happening in here. Your failures are turning into lessons. Where's the downside? And the only thing that keeps you from doing it is your own bullshit story about, oh, I can't own my shit because fill in the blank, whatever story you're telling yourself. You got to throw that off. Own your shit. Just own it, because you're only going to get better when you do. Why do we resist? We resist, we resist, we resist because self-criticism and shame. There's this story we tell ourselves, like, I am bad because I did that. But you need to transform that into, I did something bad. The difference between I am bad and I did something bad is vastly different, because one of them we're self-shaming. The other one, we're giving ourselves empathy. Okay, I did something bad. I can do better next time. I am bad. How do you change that? You've just judged yourself. You're judge and jury and hanger, right? You've just been sentenced by yourself. I did something bad. You can do a lot with that. I did something bad, but I'll get it better next time. The other reason that we don't own our shit is fear of judgment of others. Well, I touched on this slightly, but it takes a certain amount of bravery to just go, hey, you know what? I blew it. Remember when I was raising my kids when they were younger. When my daughter was a teenager, she was a lot of work at 14, 15. Man, oof, wow. And I was getting really impatient. One day I just snapped, like I lost my shit. Like I raised my voice. I don't do that. And, I'm like, go to your room. I'm tired of this bullshit. I lost it. And then I'm in my room and I'm telling myself stories about, oh man, she just pushed me to the limit. She knows how to press my buttons. Like the stories we tell ourselves when we blow it to justify what we know was not okay. You ever do that? You ever sit there and have that internal dialogue where you're like, oh, that son of a bitch, I did this because of him. Did you though? Did you act that way because someone else? Or did you act that way because you decided to act that way? Who's responsible for you? Who's responsible for you? So there I was in my room going, and I know at the back of my mind, like right here, man, I know I'm bullshitting myself. So what did I do? I owned it. Went out, I calmed down, cooled off, talked to myself, reminded myself that I'm the grown up. I'm responsible for me. And I went and told my daughter I blew it. I was like, you know what? I'm not okay with your behavior. We're going to continue working on that, but I owe you an apology. I shouldn't have talked to you that way. I shouldn't have raised my voice. The upside of that is that I just modeled for her what parents are supposed to do and what people in general should do, which is to own their shit when they blow it. Now, if I didn't, what did I model for her? I modeled for her, oh, yeah, go ahead and do whatever you want and then make an excuse for it. She knew it was wrong. I knew it was wrong. Me owning it just told her that I knew it too and I would try to do better next time. That's all we're doing. But those are those moments where we can get in our head and we can go, oh, I'm going to be judged if I admit that I blew it. Just admit you blew it. Own your shit. Self-empathy in these moments where you allow yourself a little bit of, love. You grant yourself a little bit of love and empathy. It separates your actions from your worth. I messed up, but I'm still okay. I'm not a bad person because I blew it just now. I just blew it, and I'm going to do better. The research that Brene Brown did, shows that this kind of thinking reduces shame's grip, by understanding, yeah, I did a bad thing. I'm not a bad person. It enables honest self-reflection without, getting into this sort of paralysis that we can get into when we start judging ourselves. And by the way, if you're judging yourself and it's feeling a little like you're in a paralysis because of it, it's because you're a good person. Because you're a good person. So give yourself empathy. Like, yeah, you feel like crap or you feel like just frozen in your tracks. It's because you're a good person. If you were a crappy person, it wouldn't matter and it wouldn't have this effect, right? Empathy, self-empathy. Empathy is brave. You're brave to recognize your human failings, which helps you. It's part of your spiritual and personal growth journey. So now let's talk about self-empathy tools you can use to help yourself in these moments. First, pause and reflect. Ask yourself, what's my part in this? What's my part in this? Like I was talking about earlier, it's recognizing when we had a role in the outcome, no matter how small it was, that we find power. And we're also admitting to ourselves so that we can, the more we do this, the more we eradicate that behavior of reflexively blaming. We get rid of that. We become the person who owns it instead, the person of integrity, a person we can respect. Another great tool that I love is visualizing my younger self. The person that you are inside is still the person that you were as a small child. Like you are still that same soul. You are still that you're just a little kid living in a grown-up body doing the best damn job you can. And maybe a lot of those old habits of reflexively, covering your butt, maybe those are left over from childhood. So stop and recognize and visualize yourself as your younger self. You could pick whatever age that is. Maybe you are 6, 7, 8, 9. I like my 8-year-old for some reason. I like to picture that little guy. Or maybe you're in your 20s. I don't know. Maybe you're in your 30s. Whatever younger person you were that you're feeling empathy for, and feeling that reflexive beauty and forgiving that part of you, that youthful part of you that didn't get it right. Because again, you're still that same person. You're just that same person in a big body, trying to do the best you can. Number 3, and this is the final one, and this won't surprise any of you who listens regularly or watches regularly. Journal with compassion for yourself. Compassion, just write about a failure or a flaw, but start with, I am human and I'm allowed to mess up. Start there because you are. You're human and you're allowed to mess up. You're allowed to not get it right every single time. You are not perfect. I am not perfect. No one is perfect. Point out anyone for me who is perfect. And if they appear to be, they're faking it real well and only in front of you. Nobody is perfect. Okay, in this exercise, you're going to describe what happened. You're going to write down your role in it, what your role in it was, one lesson that you learned. Okay, these things will help reinforce self respect as you go through them. Recognize your role and recognize one lesson you've learned so you can change that behavior. Okay. Self empathy is the emotional tool that makes owning your shit possible. It allows you to face your nonsense, your flaws, your failures, or your sideway moments without sinking into a victimhood or this headspace of blame. By loving yourself through the process, you reclaim power, grow authenticity, and align with the soul's journey. And isn't that what you want? Remember what Hal Elrod said: the moment you take responsibility for everything in your life is the moment you can change anything in your life. You want to be the better version of yourself? Time to start owning your shit. Thanks for being here. Thanks for watching the channel. You know I love you guys for being here. If you have any comments about this, please share them below. If you have any advice, share that as well. I'm not the only one here. Everyone reads these notes. When you share, you're sharing with everyone. You may be sharing advice that someone actually needs to hear. It may be exactly what they need to hear. If you haven't checked out the Soul Podcast yet, check it out. I'll share a link in the show notes.